be any garage in the world, anybody's backyard shop or anything like that. But, you know, I'm here in Durango, Colorado at Ned quarters, we'll call it. I want to welcome our guest here, 6-time national champion, 2-time Xterra world champion, Masters cyclocross world champion, and the first cross-country mountain bike world champion secured here in Durango, Colorado, just 31 years ago today, or roughly right around now. Mr. Ned Overend, everybody, come on up. Ned, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us, man. This is a really cool thing for you to invite us over to your bike shop over here, your bike shed, and spend some time with us.
Yeah. No, it's great to have me here, and it's great to be part of the Flagstaff and Grand Canyon Ride.
Yeah, you know, we've had a lot of great support thanks to you guys over at Specialized over the years that we can't thank you guys enough for it. You guys continue to support us, and you know, it's great to have you guys on board. So, guys, a couple of housekeeping things before we get going. Of course, you know, at any time during the webinar, if you have the opportunity to submit your questions to the presenters here today, that's Ned and I, to do so, just type in your question in the Q&A or chat at the bottom of the control panel. And as time allows, the presenters will address as many questions as they can during the Q&A session. That's us. We've got a lot of material to squeeze into in the next hour. We are going to be recording the session, so you can watch this later. Show it to your friends. And we may use some of this for promotional purposes. But if we do, we will let you know. Stay around all the way to the end because we do have some raffle prizes, some great stuff that Ned's going to show us towards the end of the broadcast, and you are not going to want to miss it. Of course, the Flagstaff to Grand Canyon organization benefits the Flagstaff Community Toys for Tots, Flagstaff Arts and Sports Together, as well as the Northern Arizona and Williams High School cycling teams. One of the largest fundraisers for this organization. And all of them are extremely grateful to have the money that you guys help raise year after year. You know, last year, Ned, we raised roughly around $85,000. It was pretty cool. So we donated $5,000 to the Flagstaff youth programs, funding the youth cycling teams, $5,000 to the Flagstaff food bank, $7,500 to the community college scholarship endowment, and $40,000 to Toys for Tots. So, you know, we've been working hard.
That's impressive. That's a lot of different charities.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to being part of that ride in the future. It's unfortunate that it couldn't happen this year, but
we're going to be.
Future, it sounds like a great event.
Yeah, we're going to be back at it next year. It is. You know, I know you've been to a bike race or two. You've been to some cycling events, but nothing as cool as this, man. You're gonna really dig it. So we hope to see it next year for sure. So Ned, I want to start out. You know, I grew up as a young kid coming into high school, seeing you on magazine covers, watching you race at the Cactus Cup out in Scottsdale. But can you fill us in on kind of your upbringing? Did you have like a everyday average childhood and one day you just started to ride a bike, or was it a little different than most folks?
My childhood was unusual in that my dad worked for the State Department, and he worked specifically for the USAID, which is aid to underdeveloped countries. So I was born in Taiwan when he was stationed there, and
wow.
We come back to Bethesda, Maryland, outside of DC, where the State Department is, and then every couple of years we would head out and spend 3 years in a foreign country. So we spent 3 years in Tehran in Iran, and we also spent 3 years in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. So we had 6 kids in our family, and my parents dragged them all over the world.
Wow. My mother grew up in a similar environment. My grandfather was Special Forces, so she grew up in Okinawa, Hawaii, Germany. And my grandfather was just a fascinating guy, so I'm sure your father was. He was a fighter pilot in World War II, correct?
Yeah, he was part of the Flying Tigers in World War II. They were stationed in China, and they were defending the Burma Road, which was a supply line for the Chinese, at which the Japanese were attacking at the time. So, yeah, he was a fighter pilot in pretty primitive conditions over there, just like dirt field airstrips, and he flew for General Chennault, who was the guy who was leading that troop over there.
Wow, so that's I mean that's a whole afternoon of stuff that I would love to pick your brain on, but we definitely want to stay on topic here. But it's cool to get some context there as to kind of your childhood and the experiences that you got to experience, especially somewhere like Iran. I mean, wow, that's the average American just can't go there with a passport and a plane ticket these days.
Yeah, not anymore. You could at the time, but since then it's changed drastically.
Certainly. So after your family spent time living in all these different places in the world, you guys settled down in San Diego, right?
No, not exactly. We moved to the Bay Area. When my dad retired, the family moved out to the Bay Area. So I actually went to high school in Marin County.
Oh.
And high school and junior college in Marin County. And you're probably thinking of San Diego. I went to San Diego State down there. That's where I met my wife. And my wife and I moved to Durango from San Diego.
Mm-hmm. Now, going to high school in Marin County, Mount Tam, the original spot, the birthplace, was there any crossings of paths in those early days or anything?
There wasn't so much, although the connection would be that I was a cross-country runner. Mm-hmm. And I was running on the trails that kind of made mountain biking famous in Marin County. It had an amazing network of trails. You hear about Repack, which is basically the first downhill mountain bike race they did, mm-hmm. with guys like Charlie Kelly and Joe Breeze and Gary Fisher.
Mike Senior, right?
I don't know that Mike Senior was racing Repack. I think he was involved. He was further down south in the Bay and in San Jose. Mm-hmm. But I was running cross country on those trails, and I really embraced endurance sports because running on those trails was so beautiful. They made running easy. You do 1 lake loop, 2 lake loop, 3 lake loop.
Yeah.
The Alpine, Bon Tempe, Lagunitas Lake. I don't know if you're familiar with Marin County, but it's spectacular scenery, and it was a great place to get into running.
Wow. Yeah. And so you fall in love with the sport. You got this incredible place to do it in. You develop that endurance sport mindset, and what from there you did cross country running. And then you got into motorcycle riding.
I got into motorcycles in high school, and actually after high school, I was a mechanic at San Francisco Yamaha. Okay. So I was doing some motocross racing, some hare scrambles, which is just kind of a longer motocross. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I had gotten a road bike from a guy who was on the cross country team, and I had been riding it just recreationally, hadn't raced it, and I had the bike. And then when I went to San Diego State a couple years after I graduated from high school, mm-hmm. My roommate Bob Babbitt said, "We read in Sports Illustrated about these guys doing the Ironman, and there was only about 8 of them, right? It was the first Ironman.
Yeah, that's right.
It was in Sports Illustrated. My roommate Bob said, "Hey, let's go do this." So we were basically doing some 10K runs at the time, but we did some body surfing. That was the swimming part, and we weren't really doing much cycling. So I actually started riding some to prepare to do an early Ironman.
Wow. Okay. So now, you were prepared? So those early Ironman years, those took place the same place Ironman is now in Kona, right?
Well, there was in the early years they were on Oahu. Ironman started on Oahu in '79, and in 1980, the Ironman I did, I think there was about 90 people that did that one. It was still on Oahu, and the distances come from Oahu. Like the 2.4 mile swim was the Waikiki rough water swim. The 112 miles is one lap around this circuit road in Oahu. Mm-hmm. And then the marathon was the Honolulu Marathon course. That's what these original guys who thought of the Ironman came up with. And so then those distances became baked. And but Oahu was too crowded to have that kind of event there. So
yeah,
the fall of '80 they switched it to Kona.
Okay.
So I did the last one on Oahu and the first one on Kona.
Wow. Okay. We're doing Ironmans way before it was cool, and people put the stickers on their car and put the tattoos on their calves. Pretty cool, man. That's something I did not know, and that's incredible and impressive because back then there really weren't the knowledge and the training resources that get a lot of these, I don't want to call them average Joe athletes, but folks that have 9-to-5 jobs and have families that, it's, that's a testament in and of itself, especially on the equipment back then. Wow.
Yeah, it was the early days of triathlon, so people were really just kind of figuring it out in those days.
For sure. Wow. So, cross country running, a little bit of motocross here. You do this wild thing called Ironman. It's fun, so you go back and you do it again. And so at this point in your life, what are you doing to make ends meet? You're not at the professional cycling level yet.
Well, I was going to San Diego State. I was also working at San Diego Suzuki as a mechanic. And I met my wife down there, and we decided we wanted to try living in a little smaller town. I'd actually seen this area of Colorado, which is the Southwest, because in San Diego I saw a flyer for an ice climbing class. And I'd done a little rock climbing, so I drove out to Colorado, I did the ice climbing class, and the area was so spectacular that I brought my girlfriend at the time, and we kind of toured Southwest Colorado, and we decided to move here. She was a nurse, and I was a car mechanic, and we kind of just picked up and moved to Colorado. We ended up choosing Durango, and that was the early 80s, and we've been here ever since.
Yeah, I imagine Durango was a pretty small town back then.
Yeah, no, it's I think it's about 20,000 now. I think it's maybe 12,000 now.
Okay, so this is, not tiny, but not as big as it is now. Cool, okay. So you find yourself here in Durango, and I'm sure you're still riding motorcycles, and what got you that first bike race?
Well, I was running. I was a mountain runner. I did they have all these different mountain runs here. Imogene Pass. The one most people are familiar with is Pikes Peak Marathon. Yeah. That's probably the biggest. So I was kind of doing the mountain running circuit as I was working as a car mechanic at Precision Imports, working mainly on VWs. And like all runners, I got injured. Like all runners will, right? So I still had a road bike, so I switched to doing some road riding to stay fit. And we have a local race here called the Iron Horse Classic. And it's been around almost 50 years, 49 years, 50 next year. So it's got a lot of history. It's a mountainous road ride from Durango to the town of Silverton.
Yeah,
so
55 miles.
Yeah, so like 6,500 feet of climbing over 50 miles. That's a lot of climbing for a road bike.
Yeah.
So I jumped into that and did well at it, and was kind of thinking, well, maybe I should try and see how far I can go in bike racing, right? And so I had a little bit of triathlon background, and I was thinking of maybe riding for a pro team. I rode the 83 Coors Classic with the Raleigh team, and Andy Hampton and Steve Tilford and Thurl Rogers were all on that team with me in 83. There's a classic photo around the wall.
Nice.
But around that time, the very early mountain bikes started coming into the stores. And I started working at the local bike shop, mountain bike specialist, to kind of focus on my racing. So I noticed the mountain bikes started coming in. There was a mountain bike series out in California called the Pacific Sun Tour Series. So I jumped in a few of those, did well, ended up winning the overall series. I wasn't a total novice because I had done some motocross racing in the early days, and I had done some road racing. So I had the fitness and the bike handling abilities. Plus, I was a mechanic, which really helped you set the bike up and keep the bike running. It was actually a key knowledge to have in the early days of mountain bike racing. So I was successful at it, called up Schwinn, and they started a mountain bike team. I wouldn't say that was like 1984.
Okay. Wow.
And there I was, and that bike, that sport, which was so small at the time, blew into, 6 years later, it was in the Olympics. Now I guess 12 years later.
Yeah, but just a astronomical ascent, of.
Yeah. So I got in really on the early days of it.
So, you know, in those early days, what was traveling like? What was the atmosphere at those races back then?
Well, it was great. I mean, it was the early days of mountain bike. There was a lot of camaraderie, and there was a lot of, I don't know if experimentation is the right word, because people were trying different things, right? The different geometry. I mean, I started out on a stock Schwinn High Sierra that I just bought right off the floor in the shop. But then once I became sponsored, the Schwinn Paramount, which was in Wisconsin, I believe, they were building us custom frames. So we were experimenting with different geometries, different tube sizes. And so they were all chromoly frames, all fully rigid, but they were trying to build in some flex into the fork, you know, to absorb some of the shock.
Okay.
And so things were changing fast. You know, I mean, the shifting was always top mount friction shifters. The early ones were Suntour was actually ahead of Shimano. They were the leader in the very early.
I remember a lot of those early bikes. My dad and my uncle's bikes were all spec with the Suntour stuff, and they always had high-end mountain bikes in those early days. I remember that. Friction shifting, thumb shifters, the 5 speeds.
Yeah. So it was growing like mad. And an interesting thing about the early days of mountain bike, it was such a unique sport and it was growing so fast, it got a lot of media attention. For instance, we used to have like 7 NORBA nationals, and every one was televised on Wide World of Sports. So it started out with ABC, and then it went to ESPN, and they were actually different people that wanted to televise a different event.
It was a hot commodity.
And every magazine was covering mountain bike racing because all of the development was happening in racing. So all the focus was on. And in those early days, it was just cross country, right?
Yeah.
We didn't have the downhillers trying to steal any of our media attention at that time. So.
And that's really wild because I think I'm a huge motorsports fan, especially the sports car racing in the specifically the late 60s through the 70s, and it was a lot of that same thing where there was all kinds of development, there was lots of things being learned. The Can-Am series, like anything goes, people were trying wild and crazy stuff. So it's really cool to hear that there's a lot of that same stuff going on. What a rapid time for development, just all kinds of wild and crazy ideas,
Yeah, different. I mean, it was, I'm going to say in about 90 to 91 is when clip-in pedals first started getting popular. I actually won the 1990 World on toe clips and straps. And
that's right.
Shimano had one of the earliest ones, the SPD, which was amazing how good they were the first year those pedals came out.
Unless it got muddy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've gotten a little better on the mud over the years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Wow, that is, it's a cool story, man. It's you've been a lot of places, done a lot of things. What did, you and, your current wife, your wife or your girlfriend at the time, starting a new relationship, you guys have been, at what point in this process did you guys get married?
Well, we get pretty soon after we moved to Durango. We got married in 1980. So we were here about 6 months. Yeah. And we ended up getting married here. And then a couple years later, had our first child, my daughter, Allison.
Okay. So now what are your in-laws and family thinking? Here you guys are a young couple, you're just getting married, and you guys are sitting around the dinner table at Thanksgiving or whatever, Sunday dinner, and you say, well, I'm going to try to make it as a professional bike racer. How did that go?
It's interesting. So, and especially when you have a kid, you got to focus, right? I mean, it's you got to decide whether bike racing is going to be a real career, or whether you're just wasting your time and not getting an education and spending all your spare cash. But I can remember my father-in-law was like, Ned, I got some advice for you. Have you ever thought about playing baseball? I thought if I was going to be a pro athlete, I should consider something that actually made some money.
Yeah. Yeah, because
I don't think I would have made any money at baseball.
Me neither. And it's amazing because nobody, even you who's trying to make a run at it, hoping for the best, you never could have foreseen any of the future and what the sport was going to turn into. So at what point did did they finally look at you and go, all right, he's gonna be able to take care of our grandkids, and our daughter's gonna be okay. We think this thing's gonna pan out.
Well, I'm gonna say it was around 1987, and the sport really started to grow, and all of the development and a lot of the attention that the manufacturers were getting was through racing. So the salaries got better. In 1987, I won the NORBA National Championships, and they had 2 unofficial world championships at the time. Because UCI didn't recognize the race, or mountain biking, Europe would have a world championships, and this one was in Villard-de-Lans in the French Alps.
Oh.
And then there was also one in Mammoth, which was the biggest race in the U.S. And so in '87, I won Mammoth, I won Villard-de-Lans, and I won the NORBA Nationals. And that's when Mike Sinyard came to Durango and said, I'm looking at, starting a reinvigorating, because they already had a mountain bike team, but he wanted to put even more into it. He wanted to use the team as product development. So he not only wanted to supply us with great product to race on, but he wanted to get feedback from the team to their product managers to help their product evolve.
Sure.
So that was I started that relationship, started racing for Mike, and specialized in 1988, and
it's worked out okay, I guess, right?
So far, so good.
Right on, man. That is super cool. So things really get settled in around that '87, and you were arguably the best off-road rider on the planet that year.
Yeah, you could say that in '87 for sure.
Yeah, and so off to a good start. But then as we get into the '90s, that's when things all of a sudden. It wasn't just Mike Senior who's got this idea of let's put a real team together. Let's go big or go home. I mean, you had a few great bike teams locally. You had Yeti, you had the Barracuda guys.
GT had a big racing program in those days. Cannondale also had a big program, and all the teams pretty much had outside sponsors. Like Cannondale had Volvo.
Yeah. You guys had Mountain Dew for a while?
We had Mountain Dew, and we had Subaru also, but then Subaru went to the Trek team after that. So lots of car sponsors. There was, soft drinks, a variety of different sponsors, along with the bike companies and the bike accessory manufacturers.
Yeah, well, it went from box vans showing up at the races to 18-wheelers and 30-foot fifth wheels.
Yeah.
On some of the smaller teams. So, as things are getting crazy, you've got, Lance Armstrong coming up on the roadside. You've got mountain biking really blowing up. Cycling throughout the '90s, it went to the stratosphere. So, you go from this small community of racers in the '80s to hospitality suites and like I said, 18-wheelers and 10 to 15 pro rider teams, massive sponsorship from big outside companies outside of cycling. What was it like as that transition happened and you guys all became superstars? What was that?
Well, it was cool. It was cool to see that little sport that we first got involved in, blow up into something where helicopters at Mammoth are following you on the course. And it's broadcast on TV. In 1990, the UCI saw how big mountain biking was getting, and they realized they needed to jump in. So they sanctioned an official World Championships and World Cup series. So that was an important part of it, because that gave it, real legitimacy, and also the Olympic Committee recognizes UCI sanctioned events. So that's what led it to be in the Olympics in 1996.
Yep, and you put in a lot of effort. You've had, there's no question. We went over just, some of the bullet points of your incredible career. And you worked really hard to try and make that Olympic team. Was that tough?
It was, but I had a lot of success. So, so in 1996, I was the alternate. I was the third man on the two-man team.
Yeah.
So I had some issues in the qualifying races, and a couple of punctures, and punctures are not excuses. Punctures are something that you actually control, and you have some control over them. Mm-hmm. And I did get a lot of punctures, which cost me a lot of wins and events, but I had a couple that year leading up to the Olympics. So, but there's other guys with bad luck too. I think Travis Brown, he was looking at going to those Olympics as well, and he broke his collarbone in, I think it was in Traverse City, right before one of the NORBA Nationals. And John Tomac wasn't selected because he was sick as well around that time. So even though he was one of the best racers, probably should have gone, and you can always second guess selection processes, and everybody always does.
Sure.
And but it ended up being Tinker and Don Myra, Tinker Juarez, and so they represented us well. Yeah. But I was 1940 at the time, or I was 1940. I was 40 in 1996, and chose that time to have that be the last year where I was going to fly all over the world chasing the World Cup and the World Championships. And I moved on to try some different events that I kind of wanted to do, but I've been so focused on just mountain bike racing.
Yeah, sure. Ned, we're gonna in just a few minutes we're gonna break for raffle prizes. But before we do that, I want to touch a little more on the Roaring '90s, and you know you know your kids are by the time we're getting in the mid '90s or a few years old. Your travel schedule, I'm sure, is just crazy. You've got not only races, but you've got sponsor obligations and things like that. What was it like trying to juggle family life with all that?
Well, it was difficult because family is a commitment. So it's not only got to be a commitment that you have a real career so you can support your family. It's a commitment that you need to spend time. So I had two young kids at the time in the mid '90s, and my son was actually born in 1990, and my daughter was 4 years older than him, so she was 86. But what I would do is that we'd have these spring mountain bike races, which you'd spend like 2 or 3 weeks over there doing the early World Cup races. And my wife would come, she'd bring both the young kids, and then we'd also bring my mom to help her deal with the kids because they were pretty young. So it was tough because I can remember some transatlantic flights, where the kids are crying. This is like when they were like maybe 2 years old, one. Yeah. And you would get so tired of trying to babysit the kids on a transatlantic flight. I remember, my daughter getting down to the floor and then crawling under the seats and just who knows where she crawled to, but we're like, it's a moment of peace and quiet while the people behind us are babysitting. Sure. Somewhere back there.
And I'd imagine that was, that weighed on you a little bit because, for me, I can remember back when I was racing, I was, I'm a pretty serious racer with the faster racers in the Southwest, and I'd spend a lot of time and effort training and getting ready, and that last week leading up to it, you're always thinking about, okay, hold on, I got to make sure I eat. I really got to be on my eating, my rest and recovery. I got to make sure all my stuff's dialed in, and these little unknown variables get in the way and kind of they're like speed bumps, to your road that you're trying to go down, and it gets frustrating,
Yeah, I mean But it can be a distraction, but I think sometimes it can be a good distraction. Because sometimes people become too obsessed with their program, right? Training, recovery, they become, watching every minute detail they get focused on, and if something, gets them out of that pattern or something like that, then it screws with their mojo, and they feel like they can't perform properly. But I got used to being more resilient, and more adaptable in the different race situations.
Yeah, you have to.
And just kind of figuring out how to make it work and being more relaxed about it. I think, and not obsessive. I think maybe it's one of the things that have helped me still being excited about riding hard and doing some racing today.
Sure. Right on. Cool. All right, guys, I think it's time for us to give away some prizes. We got some cool stuff, some tires for Specialized, as well as some signed hats by Ned Overend, and we got a specialized bumper to give away as well. So we're going to toss it over to Janet, who is digging around in the bucket of names. Janet, what do you got for us?
Well, hold on. I was going to make sure you can see me. Where am I? Where do I
I can still see me.
I gotta spotlight me. Okay, I'm on spotlight now. All right. So Ned was kind enough to autograph a bunch of our hats, our Flag2GC Canyon hats. So we have a Ned Overend signed hat. And for this raffle, we will do a set of Purgatory 29 by 2.3 grid trail tires. So a set of those, so front and back. And we have everybody's name who registered for this event in this Easter basket. And Dave is going to reach in here and grab a name. And who do we have? Dave Nadeau, N-A-D-E-A-U, and I see you're here. So congratulations, Dave. You win. I will be in contact with you to figure out how to get these to you. I hope you live in Arizona. Just a little easier. But if not, we'll get them to you.
Cool.
All right, back to you.
Cool. Thank you, Janet and Dave. Good job on pulling those names. Now, Ned, been in the game a long time, since the beginning, some might say, and you continue to do product development work for Specialized. So, you know, we'll touch on that in a minute, but I wanted to maybe ask you, for some of our other fellow Flagstaff and Grand Canyon enthusiast members, those that get out and ride, you know, what are some fitness tips and tricks, kind of for those folks starting the second half of their century of life? What do you got?
Well, okay, that's a big question, but I'll go to some very basics, which is recovery. And people think, oh, I train hard, it's going to make me better. But that's not actually works. You train hard and then you rest, and that's what makes you better. You train hard, you tear your body down, and if you get proper recovery, your body rebuilds itself stronger. Very simple training principle.
Yeah.
But too many people get too obsessive about the training hard part. And as you get older, it'll really slap you in the face if you don't get enough recovery. You'll figure it out fast. And so it's really basic, but people, and I tell you, young kids especially, right? Juniors can go out and train too hard. That's why it's important for juniors to have coaches. And but then you get a lot of masters racers who are kind of obsessive about their training, and they start to feel guilty if they don't get in enough miles or if they don't ride hard. So realizing when you need a rest day, and I'm an intuitive trainer. I haven't really used a coach, but I've learned over the years, and I read a lot of coaching material. You know, things like everything from Joe Friel to Eddie Borsonitz.
You are your coach.
Basically, with a lot of knowledge from other coaches.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of it out there, especially these days, you know, which you can read from there's so many sources for coaching knowledge.
Sure.
But really just having a real stand back and look at how much recovery you actually need. If you got a ride plan and it's a 2-hour hard ride and you start out on it and you're not properly recovered, then you're not going to benefit from that ride. You know, you take an easy day and try it again when you're more recovered.
Sure. And, you know, it's not life or death, is it, if we don't ride our bike the amount of miles or hours we planned? It's for a lot of our older riders, well, almost none of our older riders, with the exception of a handful that I know of, they're not racing professionally. This is the paycheck. This isn't this isn't what's putting food on the table. This is for fun and enjoyment. And I think sometimes we can lose sight of the fact that, like, it's okay, we're doing this for fun. Don't beat yourself up over it.
Well, and you want to be healthy, right? I mean, and that goes hand in hand with having good performances or attaining better fitness. And so if you're overtraining, it's not the reality. It's easier to get sick. It's easier to get injured, and so it's generally not healthy. Another thing that has helped me over the years is, I started out running and then I went to triathlon. So I like to cross train. I live in Durango in the winter, so it's hard to ride. So I'll do Nordic skiing, cross country skiing, which is a great cross training sport. And that kind of, it builds a more robust system, right?
Yeah.
You're developing more muscle groups. It helps when you crash, you're not as fragile, but it also helps keep it fresh, keeps you more balanced here. The different muscle groups that are opposing each other. So again, it helps with longevity.
Yeah, I've always enjoyed for cross training. I've always really enjoyed trail running because I feel like, much like mountain bike, every twist and turn is different than the last, as opposed to running on a treadmill or running, just running pavement. But you're having to use all those little stabilizer muscles in your hips and your ankles and everything, and that helps kind of supplement that. So I've always enjoyed trail running.
Yeah, trail running it's the only kind of running I do, and I'll actually run a lot of snowpack trails because again, snowpack trails especially are softer, so it's easier on the body.
Makes sense. So those of you down in Phoenix, remember in the winter, you're going to be looking to run snowpack trails. That's right. So Ned, as you touched on this earlier when Mike Senior kind of really put together that first, we'll call it that full-blown 100% specialized team. A big part of that was developing products that would actually trickle down to the consumer bikes and things like that. Can you kind of touch on some of the products over the years that you've had a direct handle in developing?
Well, there's a variety of them. I mean, the Specialized has made tires, right? Our very first tire was the ground control, which that tire won a lot of championships. It was kind of state of the art. Although I'm not going to take any credit for developing the ground control tire because that was actually Wilderness Trail Bikes, Specialized development.
Really? Okay.
Mike had a partnership with the guys at TV early on. So, but we developed other tires after the Wilderness, after our partnership with Wilderness Trail Bikes. One would be the Captain tire, which was kind of a fast-rolling trail tire. So, and that's named after me, the Captain tire. But we also helmets in the early days. We had like the Sub-6 helmet and the Piranha. A variety of different helmets. Shoes has been a big market for us. Yeah. And some of the shoes we had in the early days was primitive. It's hard to start up a quality shoe business, but Specialized dedicated a lot to it. But it took a few years. There were some early days of racing where the first thing you did after you crossed the finish line, was you took off your shoes. And you stood around in your socks because your feet hurt so bad, right? But that's all part of the development process. So, and so many components, right? I mean, saddles was a big one for us. Mountain bike saddles, the handlebars, and just so many different components. But the cross-country bikes, the way the geometry, and I've always, having started out in motorcycling, being a motocross racer, I've always been a big believer in full suspension bikes. And Mike McAndrews is our suspension guru at Specialized. And in '96, we were really trying to figure out, what kind of full suspension bike can we have that they'll race at the World Cup level? Because everyone was racing hardtails. And they just weren't efficient enough. Yeah. So eventually in 2001, we launched the Specialized Epic full suspension bike, which had brain technology, which is an inertia valve that opens and closes when it senses bumps on the ground. So it's firm when it's smooth, and it's active when the ground is bumpy. So, and that bike is done on the World Cups and World Championships. It's the first full suspension bike to win a World Championship.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's funny because my philosophy on full suspension bikes, the first time riding one, and I had my first one in 1994. It was a blast. It was so much fun. It was heavier. And so, after racing on that for a year, and then getting serious as a junior expert, riding for a team where we got custom frames, my philosophy for a lot of years was always, well, full suspension, they're cool and they can make them light, but the hardtail is always going to be lighter. And it wasn't until probably in the last 10 years that it kind of came to me that those full suspension bikes now are at a point where, of course the hardtail is going to be lighter, but the amount of energy you save by not having to stand up as much and being able to sit down and pedal grossly outweighs that tiny half a pound of weight mounting.
Yeah. Plus they're more efficient, and if that you can actually stand up more on the current Epic with the brain technology because it's locking itself out, which is instantaneous. You don't have time like in a short cross country race. You know, I mean, you start off racing. The races are shorter. It's a powerful race. You're closing gaps, accelerating. So you don't have time to also be opening and closing shock. So shock that actually works on its own, and our shock and fork actually do that in conjunction. So,
and we're going to check some of that out here in a little bit. So stick around, guys. We got some cool stuff to see. Now, Ned, Specialized since really the early '90s, there's kind of a cool connection with Arizona. You know, 99.9% of our viewers that are watching are in Arizona. They're Arizona riders. There's a good amount of them that they've been mountain biking on the scene for decades. You got a handful of new folks out there. But you know, when Dan Basinski and Scott Paulzell kind of partnered up to bring Specialized in with the Cactus Cup, you know, and as big as that race has gotten, and then their Specialized's help with building the first competitive loops at McDowell Mountain Park, and then again with the relaunched Cactus Cup, thanks to Mike and Sage Melly and their partnership with Specialized. You know, Specialized has had that connection with Arizona, and you've got a little bit of an Arizona connection, especially these days, right?
Yeah, especially these days. My daughter lives in Scottsdale, so we're spending a lot of time down there. But yeah, when you talk about the early days of mountain biking, one of the things that helped it grow was it's all about events. You know, the event that got me into cycling was the Iron Horse Classic, which is a big local event. Events get people excited. The event of Flagstaff, Grand Canyon. They're events that they raise money, they get people involved in the sport, right? So the biggest mountain bike race on the planet was the Cactus Cup in late 80s.
Early going into the 90s. In the mid 90s, we had to move from Pinnacle Peak to Westworld, and you guys know Westworld. That's where they have the Barrett Jackson auction, the Rear Horse Show. There's a huge place of just acres and acres and acres. And I can remember, I want to say it was '96 or '97 when the American Bicycle Association had their nationals, the BMX nationals. There that same weekend. I mean, it was huge.
So it's not the late 80s. It'd be like the
mid 90s.
Early to mid 90s. And that event, I mean, it was an international skaters. I mean, you know, like people, the greatest stars from Europe had to come over and be part of that event. And like you say, I mean, there was teams with 18-wheelers. The expo was huge, and huge fields. And it actually, that event space was kind of taken over by Sea Otter.
Yes.
And I would say that Specialized on that event, and it was giving, this is just conjecture, but there was so much exposure for Specialized as a brand. I don't think the other bike companies particularly liked sending their teams there to give Specialized
for a big commercial with Specialized.
Yeah. It was kind of the start-off event in the early season, and that kind of became the Sea Otter, which is now the biggest cycling event in the world.
Yeah, just massive. I've had the opportunity to be on the announcing staff at Sea Otter in recent years. It is really cool because you see those parallels. This is, you know, where they've drawn from what they did at the Cactus Cup in those days. And they've applied those ideas to Sea Otter. Jeff Frost, who is one of the head directors at Sea Otter, is a good friend of mine. It's cool to kind of see those connections back to those roots. Now you guys are starting to spend a little more time in Arizona these days. Your daughter lives down there, and I don't know if you want to give her insurance company a plug. If anyone's looking for insurance,
Means Financial.
There you go.
We don't want to do this maybe too commercial, but yeah. So they moved there from San Diego because it was more affordable. I guess San Diego wasn't hot enough for them. But it's great. I spent a lot of time riding, especially out of Fountain Hills at McDowell Mountain Park, and
great trail.
I love the riding down there. Those tires that we gave away there, the Purgatory Grid tires. Those are Scott Paulzell's go-to tires.
Okay.
You know, they're grid, which means they've got a little more robust casing, so they're harder to flat, and the purgatory has a little more bite to it, so it's great on those slippery, sandy corners.
Yeah.
High speed on the Pemberton Trail.
For sure. And so when you guys are down there, like, what are some of the places that you guys like to visit and do while you're there visiting?
Well, we do a variety of stuff. My daughter and son-in-law are big into hiking, and so we'll hike things like the Tom Tom's Trail, and that, because they live over close to the park, which is the gateway to that. And
that's right.
So we enjoy all kinds of, you know, we go to the zoo down in Phoenix, not in the middle of summer so much, but we love the desert. You know, I mean, I've enjoyed looking for crested saguaros, and there's different areas.
Like four-leaf clovers.
Yeah, but it's cool to kind of go and search those out, because there's several of them down there, but they're pretty rare. Yeah, but it's cool. The saguaros are beautiful. I was down there when they recently had that big fire off towards the Fort Peaks. Yeah. And, it's gonna be, I'm almost frightened to see how many saguaros got burned off in that area.
Yeah, my sister drove up that way just a few weeks ago, and she said it was burned all the way from, you know, essentially the Saguaro Lake turnoff, almost all the way up to Mount Ord. And it's just, and that they had the on the 87 there, they had to reduce to one lane because all the guardrail posts burned and the guardrail fell down. So that was a bad one. Hopefully we won't see another fire like that for a really long time, but you know, the desert will come back. It always persists. For sure. So Ned, we got some cool stuff to check out. We want to make sure we do that before we go. We hope you guys are sticking around for this, because we're going to get to see some really cool things where Ned's going to share some stories. You know, before we get into some of those stories, why don't we look at some bikes? Okay. And you know, we want to see. I know you got, you know, being, you know, kind of want to specialize product and go-to guy. You got some cool cutting edge stuff here. But before we get into that, let's go back in time a little bit. You brought another bike out here that's kind of has some special significance, and I'm going to go kind of shift gears, and I'm going to play cameraman guy. So I'm going to get behind the lens here, and we'll take a look at some of this cool stuff. So bear with me here. So what are we looking at here first, Ned?
All right. So here's this is the first bike that Specialized called an Epic. And so it's a hardtail. It's the same frame. The frame that I won the 1990 Worlds on was a prototype at the time. But so this is a couple years later that this model was sold. So it's actually it's the final. They made 60 of them. Okay. This is one of 60 signature models. So what's special about this bike is it's carbon tubes. And there was other companies that made carbon tubes, and I won't name them. Their carbon tubes were actually carbon that was wrapped over aluminum. So it wasn't a true carbon tube, and it didn't really give you the true properties of carbon. One of them was just lightweight. Yeah. So this is a carbon tube bike, which is bonded, glued to titanium lugs. And these lugs were welded up in mercury. So, and were also made, and this was finished, assembled in the plant in Morganhill, a specialized plant. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in here on the. One of the problems with this bike was it's so expensive to make that it really wasn't commercially viable. Yeah. So they made a final 60 edition. It was super unique. This was a halo bike, so to speak. And you can even see these lugs. It's hard to see, but they've actually been down. So, I see that right about here. It's tough to see the line, guys. From here back, you can see them. They just start to taper a hair. Now let's work to the back, and I want to show you guys these spokes here, because spokes are not these days. People aren't thinking about things like that. But tell us about the spokes. So these spokes are unique, and you can see the rainbow colors in them. These are titanium spokes, and titanium spokes were really only popular for a while. I think they weren't as durable. They're all right in a race situation where you're not going to use the wheels year after year. But super cool, super light, titanium spokes, obviously aluminum nipples. These rims, these are Maverick rims. They have a ceramic coating on the brake surfaces because we would have issues. Of course, these are V-style brakes, and if you have too soft a aluminum rim, then you get someplace like Moab, or even if it rained in Phoenix, then the brake pads would actually wear the rims out in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So the ceramic coating kind of protected the rims. You can see these tires. These are ground control tires, and these are 195s. They look so skinny. It's hard to imagine. They measure a little bit less than that, but.
Now this newer generation, what I'll call the newer generation XTR, this is, I mean, this was the ultimate, right? V brakes came out. This was way before brakes were even remotely viable on a mountain bike. These were a game changer compared to the old cantilever brakes, weren't they?
Yeah, these were a great brake. The design of the V brake, it's got way more leverage because of the longer arms than the cantilever brakes had.
And then we got a first generation. This was grip shift. It wasn't even SRAM.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good question. They hadn't called it SRAM yet. It was a grip shift ESP. One thing that's interesting on this bike is that it's got these SRAM, grip shift twist levers. Now owned by SRAM.
The X-rays.
And, the X-rays. Although the guys who started SRAM, the guys created grip shift. And named it SRAM. But it also has Avid brakes, which Avid was later bought by SRAM. So it is part of SRAM. It has a specialized version. It's called a specialized future shock. And it's actually made by RockShox.
So that was essentially a Mag 21. Right.
Yes, and we had a carbon wrap lower to it, and to kind of increase the stiffness. But RockShox has now been bought by SRAM as part of the SRAM group. So
yeah, which is wild to see. You know, you have this bike it's spec'd with grip shift shifters and rear derailleur. It's got the Avid brake levers, and then lo and behold, years later they come together as they're one company.
Consolidation in the industry. Still, DT, they made great helps back then. They're still making, I think, the state-of-the-art helps.
Yeah, tell us about the pedals.
These pedals are bebops. And the benefit of bebops were super light and super good in the mud.
Yeah.
But a little bit hard to locate. And they're on this bike, but I did not end up using bebops for very long. I don't know if that company is still around, but I could be wrong. But so it's an interesting pedal. It's super light. And this bike is built, it is state of the art for how light it was at the time.
Now what is the rough weight on this?
It's just under 22 pounds.
That was light back then. That was crazy light back then. How many
for a bike with full suspension with front fork?
And how many speeds is that? 8-speed?
Well, it's a triple in the front.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. With an 8-speed rear.
Yep.
Titanium cogs.
Wow. Titanium stem. Yeah. So this is tied out. This was incredible. Look at the length on that stem. It's amazing compared to what we ride now. It's so this was cutting edge technology. 1991, 1992, right in there. This was it. This was a space age as it gets. But Ned, in 2021, what are we looking at here?
What's interesting, because this really is the progression of how high-end race bikes have gone, right? That state of the art at the time. Here we have a bike that is essentially the same weight.
Okay.
Only it's a full suspension bike, 100 mil travel front and rear, and it's the same weight. It's got heavier pedals, but more durable pedals that are easy to get into. It's also got a dropper post on it.
Okay.
So with the dropper post, full suspension. If you look at the tires, they're a full at least 30% wider.
Mm-hmm.
They're more durable. The wheels are much more durable. The wheels are bigger. So you get all of these things with essentially, the weights are almost identical.
Yeah, that seems to be the magic weight, that like 22, 23 pound, you know, that seems to be the magic cross country weight that bikes have always kind of floated around. Yes, there's been lighter bikes to really have all the bells and whistles and the performance features right around that 22, 23 pounds.
And this bike, for instance, we just launched it a couple weeks ago
Mm-hmm.
to the public. And so the way that cross-country bikes have gone, it's more progressive geometry. So
Mm-hmm.
a little bit slacker head angle.
Yeah.
Because
Mm-hmm.
the courses these days are becoming much more technical.
Mm-hmm.
One reason the courses are becoming more technical is because the bikes are so much more capable. And
it's a vicious cycle.
People are riding capable trail bikes, so they're used to riding kind of extreme terrain.
Mm-hmm.
But the cross-country bikes were a little bit behind the trail bikes as far as the progressive geometry. So now the bikes are light. You can add a dropper. We added a dropper post to this model, but we have some models, the Epic Evo, which will come with a dropper post.
Yeah.
But we have the brain technology built into this bike. So there's an inertia valve built into the fork.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's an inertia valve, which is close to the rear axle here.
Okay.
And this inertia valve, when it hits a bump,
Mm-hmm.
a brass weight drops, it opens the hydraulic circuit so that shock becomes active, and it becomes smooth, immediately locks out again. So you can stand up and attack in a smooth area, and the bike's efficient, and when you're descending on a rough trail, the bike is very active.
Yeah. Well, now what are your thoughts on dropper posts as far as for racing goes? Is that something you like to race with, or do you rather save the weight?
For a long time, I was like, dropper posts just for trail riders, but the fact is that mountain bikers, you know, even guys who race a lot, we spend a very small percent of our time actually racing.
Yeah.
Most of our time is training,
Mm-hmm.
right? We want to train on fun trails.
Yeah.
You guys have some technical trails in Phoenix for
Mm-hmm.
sure, and we got a ton of them here in Durango. So you have a lot more fun training. You actually learn to go faster downhill, and once you get used to dropper posts, it's hard to go back. So
Yeah.
so I think they make a lot of sense, especially with the rock gardens they have now and
Mhm.
even jumps that they're putting in cross country courses. So I'm a believer in droppers.
Mm-hmm. Wow, man. Yeah, this Specialized Epic full suspension is just a gorgeous machine, and you know I've ridden I've had 4 or 5 different Specialized bikes, and they've all been incredible bikes throughout the years. Just it doesn't matter, and it's a brand that it's always been a brand that I know that I've been able to count on, whether I've been racing, with Scott Paulzell on the regional team back in the old days, or I'm selecting a bike to cross country race. They've really been on top of their game. It's incredible stuff.
Yeah, we've always been well represented in Arizona with Scott and
Mm-hmm.
supporting good events down there. And the fact that the Cactus Cup is coming back, that's pretty cool. I mean, it's been back for a few years now, and of course, COVID, they changed the date. I was actually flying to Phoenix. I arrived in Phoenix when I found out that Cactus Cup.
I was driven. Yeah. Yep. That was
I think we had a rain issue on that date as well.
That was a rain issue. Yeah.
It's been rescheduled, and I looked on the website today, and October 16th, 18th. So hopefully it happens. Arizona can turn
things around, man. Whew.
Around, it's scary right now.
For sure. So cool. All right, well, I'm going to put this back and let's get resituated here. Because before we go, as we're getting to the end here, I would love to pick your brain. I want to hear some stories. I want to know, some of the fun side of things, and in this wild career of professional cycling, and even living in Durango. It seems that Durango is it's a mecca for professional cyclists. I remember back in the 90s. You had, we talked about this before. I thought of it almost like WWF wrestling, except it was real, where you had the cast of characters. You had Greg Hairball, you had John Tomac, Missy Giobbi, Julie Furtado, Tinker Juarez. What was it like in those days? What was the social scene like back then?
It was there was a lot of camaraderie. John Tomac moved here. It was interesting. So again, back to promoters, right? Without the promoters, we don't have a sport, right? So it was really whether it's the first guys who started repack and you know, which they were doing on their fat tire bikes, and then they decided they need different brakes and maybe they needed gear, so because they were pushing the bikes up the hill. So I mean that's one of the very first mountain bike events. But the Iron Horse Classic has been doing a road event going on again 50 years, but they also got into mountain bike events early on. So we had NORBA Nationals, then we had the first World Championships in 1990. So what this caused was people saw the great riding here, so they ended up moving here. Julie Picotto, Missy Giovi moved here, Elka Butzart, John Tomac. So a ton of the stars moved here, and we were kind of all living in the same town. Dale Price lived here. Yeah. So it was pretty cool because you know everyone was friendly. We'd go on group rides that make for pretty wild. And those would be generally road rides. Yeah. But and Julie Picotto, she hurt some male egos back in the day on those group road rides. It's incredibly talented woman. So so that part was fun, but I can think of the early days, and I'm going to say it was maybe 91, and it was on the World Cup circuit, and we would go in March, late March, early April, we would go to Europe and do 2 or 3 World Cups in a row. And one of them was in Heerlen, Holland. And I remember Daryl and I went there. We didn't have a mechanic with us. You know, we brought a box of spare parts. Super sandy in Holland, and pretty much a flat course. It started on a horse race track. Okay. So we went in, and in those days there was a lot of guys. There was probably 90 to 100 guys. Yeah. Riding the pro race, and it was in the day, Tomac and Tom Skrishnik. And I remember we'd be training on the course and just our bike wouldn't shift, the cables wouldn't work, right? So the sand was getting in the cables. Yeah, everything else. So after every ride, we'd be like taking the cables off and trying to, rinse out the cable housing and stuff like that. So race day comes around and it's flat and it's fast. And because it's fast, there's drafting, right? So you're actually racing in groups. And I was actually in the second group. I think there was like 3 or 4 guys off the front. And there was 4 of us, and we're going through the woods. We're on the last lap, and I'm coming apart. So I'm just trying to hang on to that wheel in front of me. Yeah. And there's 4 of us going through the woods. The guy in front of me, Tommy Post was his name. I remember it. He clipped his handlebars on a tree because it was pretty tight through the trees, but fast. Yeah. Clipped his handlebars, went down on the ground, and I'm like Tommy Post, rolling around on the ground, and the 3 guys that are going to help me get to the finish line are disappearing into the woods. So I kind of sucked it up, tried to unweight as I was going over. I remember, my rear wheel slammed on his, my front fork had, 60 or something like that. But my rear wheel slammed into his thighs and kicked up, and I was like riding a front nose wheelie, chasing those guys. But I got back on and managed to, I maybe finished 6th in that race. But Tommy Post and I were laughing afterwards because he had that ground control tread mark right over. That's awesome. His pasty white thighs. I think he got it. Wow, that's awesome. Jeez, man, jeez. So Ned, I want to give our audience a chance. So if we want to get a couple questions, you guys can get those to me via WhatsApp. While we're getting those questions together, let's go back to 1990. Here it is, and I don't know your son's birthday, but either you were soon to be dad or you were dad again. You're in your hometown. The first UCI World Championships. The first guy across the line is you with your arms raised. What was that like? Well, there was a lot of pressure going into that race. I had won 3 world championships before that, but they weren't official world championships, right? They were some of the most competitive races in the world. I think one was in Villard de Lans, and I think I won 2 of the world championships in Mammoth. So I had this Palmares, but here was the first official world championships. right, in 1990. So the pressure was on me to say that, hey, I probably got the best record so far in mountain biking, and I want to put a stamp on it. And because it's the first one, it's got a ton of exposure. You know, I mean, Sports Illustrated was there, and all the international magazines, and truly international teams. I mean, you know, each country got to send so many people and stuff like that. So the first true rainbow stripe jersey. So the pressure was on. It was in my hometown, so that was nice because I didn't have to travel. But at the same time, I knew everybody, and everybody had come to my hometown. So I was worried about not doing well as much as anything. So when I did finally win it, and there was no given, right? I mean, I battled with Thomas Frischneck right to the last lap, and just a huge sense of relief. That's what it was. And then I could really enjoy it. It took me a little while to relax and enjoy it, but just the relief of having it done, because you can be the greatest rider in the world and you still will not win the world championship unless you make it happen on that day. And there's been a lot of riders with amazing records that have not been able to snag that one win on that one given day. So
I remember Tinker Juarez came. You know, he came very close to a world championship himself in cross country, and you know, that was, you know, so I hear you on that one. So I mean, you're like, all right, so you're crossing the line. You're like, hold on, guys, I'm gonna ride my bike home real quick, grab a shower, I'll be back for awards, and then a little barbecue in my backyard to celebrate, and then but you guys gotta leave because I gotta mow the yard the next morning. You know,
it was swamp. I mean, the amount it's like a presidential press conference. I mean, you're swarmed by people that are sticking microphones in your face, and it's a little overwhelming. But it's you know, who cares? Once it's done, you know, you can just relax and enjoy. For sure. So, and then you have the World Championship stripes, which you get to wear in your sleeves and your collar. The world champion does afterwards. Wherever. So,
just a pretty special thing.
Pretty cool.
Which cracks me up every time I see somebody, the average Joe, wearing a rainbow jersey. I'm like, is he world champion? Remember that guy, Bob from the next neighborhood over, winning the world. Man, that's cool. That's some pretty amazing stuff. Before we jump into our last round of our viewer questions, I want to talk to you about something that I think you're probably one of the best people to talk about this, your history with motorcycles, really being into sports since the beginning, being the George Washington of mountain bike racing, having the first official world championship on your belt, and just your years of dedication to the sport and working in the cycling industry. But let's talk e-bikes for a minute and kind of your thoughts and opinions on e-bikes and where you stand on that.
E-bikes can be a polarizing topic. And it's interesting that some of the strongest opinions against e-bike riding comes from cross-country riders and from some real core non-bikers and not so much from other trail users. So having been in the early days of mountain biking, I've seen a lot of trails that were closed to mountain bikes or never opened because hikers did not want mountain bikers on the trail. So and I was not an early advocate of e-bikes. I remember our European dealers came to us and said, hey, these e-bikes are really important in Europe. And if you want to maintain market share and not lose market share, then you need to investigate making a good e-bike. A class 1 pedelec, which has a limited amount of power, it has to be pedaled, does not have a throttle mode, and has a limited top speed. And so I figured, okay, you know, I'm into a different product that's specialized, and I won't be worried about concern involved in these e-bikes. But as I traveled to Europe, as I traveled to South America, as I traveled to different countries all over the world, I was riding e-bikes because that's what they want to ride, because it's an important part of what they're selling. So I'm riding with e-bike groups. I'm getting to see that it's not an issue in these places where e-bikes, class 1 e-bikes, be sharing trails with other mountain bikers and other trail users. And so now it's become an important market in the U.S.
Yeah.
I see people who love riding e-bikes, people who embrace it. It's brought new people to the sport, which I think is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also learned a lot from having talked to rangers in different parts in Southern California, parts in Northern California.
Mm-hmm.
Jeffco County, which is where Denver is, has allowed e-bikes on all the trails that regular mountain bikes are on. And they started with a 1-year test study,
Mm-hmm.
0 complaints. Now they're 2 years in, 0 complaints.
Mm-hmm.
Maricopa County is the same with certain parts. Down Mountain Park allows e-bikes. I talked to the rangers there, they're not having an issue.
Mm-hmm.
We just opened one trail to them here in Durango. Durango is so many hardcore cross-country guys.
Yeah.
It was hard to get one trail to allow e-bikes, but they finally opened it up. And again, by showing the city council that, okay, there's other areas that have a template for allowing it, and there has not been a lot of issues. So people love them. And,
yeah. Well, I think that's a good approach. It is the new big scary technology out there, and with anything, anytime something new comes out, a measured, thoughtful, slow approach to it, you know, testing the waters and trickling things out is really the best way to do it instead of just flooding.
Absolutely. It needs to be studied. I mean, IMPA did a study on trail wear where they found that e-bikes did not, create an appreciable amount of extra trail wear. So that's important.
Yeah. Well, and getting onto that potential, that possibility for excessive trail wear, you know, I hear a lot of people say, well, it's got a motor and it's got 2 wheels, so it's a motorcycle by definition. But I rode my good friend Tyler. He's got a specialized Levo, and he let me pedal around on that. And I was amazed at how you never feel the motor kick in. You don't get this push. It's not like driving a turbocharged car where all of a sudden the power rolls in and pushes you along. I equate it to if you're riding on flat ground, you feel like you're pedaling down a gentle hill. And if you're riding up a gradual climb, you feel like you're pedaling on flat ground. But the technology is so good that there is no wheel spin or roosting turns or anything like that.
And that is an issue to equate them to motorcycles. They're not motorcycles. It's not wheel spin. It's pedal assist. Mm-hmm. And that's an important part of the Class 1 pedelecs. That's the only kind of mountain bike specialized, and most of the large manufacturers make. Mm-hmm. It's the Class 1 pedelec because they do not want to get sideways with trail user groups by making a different Class E mountain bike. Mm-hmm. Now we'll make the commuters are Class 3s, so they go a little faster. Yeah, but they are again not trail bikes.
Not trail worthy, not trail bikes. All right, well, let's get into some of our viewer questions here. I want to touch on, and we talked about this when we visited a couple weeks ago. Give us a few brief thoughts on crank arm length and elliptical chain rings.
Well, that's a good question. Crank arm length, I am pretty standard there. I use 172.5s on the road, and I use 175s on the mountain bike. And the mountain bike, I feel like the longer crank arm when I'm standing up and pedaling over obstacles or transition from seated to standing on a steep climb, I like the extra leverage that you get with a longer arm. Now, the downside to that is, I mean, that's a typical spec for a medium-sized bike is 175. Mm-hmm. Some of our trail bikes will have a little bit shorter crank arm because they tend to have a lower bottom bracket, and to avoid pedal strikes. Yeah. If you can run a shorter crank arm, then you have more clearance for pedal strikes. But I'm not pushing people to ride 175. I think there's people who maybe like to spin more, and if someone likes to spin more, and generally if you have shorter legs, then they recommend 175 chain rings. Now on elliptical chain rings, I've been a big fan of rotor rings for at least a decade, if not two, right? Yeah. The decades blend together when we've been around for a bunch of them. But and scientifically, to me, it's an intuitive feel that I feel like I can push a bigger gear, stay on top of the gear more easily, a little bit bigger gear, especially on climbs with rotor rings. which is an elliptical chainring. And rotor also has the benefit of having a couple of positions where you can change them slightly. Most other elliptical chainrings don't have that.
Yeah, so you can really fine tune those to get them, you know, just in that right spot, just spend some time.
And there's generally, these are not, it's not BioPaste. BioPaste was a different position chainring. For those of you who are older, they'll remember that in the 80s, there was a lot of bikes were spec with Shimano BioPaste. It's not the same thing. It's the ellipse is in a different part of the chainring. So it benefits a lot. There's been a lot of Tour de France champions who have won the Tour de France on elliptical chainring.
There you go. That's the word on that. How about you know, you like you said, you've been in the sport a long time, and we noticed there's a park named after you, right? Not too far from here. Some of our viewers are wondering kind of some good ways that maybe newer mountain bikers can give back to the sports. You know, any organizations in particular that you really like, that you feel are good, viable, productive organizations?
Well, for sure, you should be involved in your local trail group. You know, here in Durango, it's Trails 2000, and we've been very fortunate that Trails 2000.
That's a very retro name.
Yeah, I think they were looking for 2,000 members or something at the time. I'm not. Yeah, it's it was really forward thinking back in the 90s.
Yeah.
But so what they do is not only trail maintenance, but they also will do some trail education. So educating mountain bikers, and there's some of them out there that need educating about trail etiquette, right?
Yeah.
They tend to, when my wife's walking the dog, she has mountain bikers, they're very friendly, but she's not using the trail. They go by her too fast, you know? So even though they're friendly, they're not aware of what they're doing. It's not like they're being, you know, they're intending to be rude.
Yeah.
But they are just misjudging what's comfortable for a hiker, and especially a hiker with a dog on a leash, what's comfortable for them when they're going by at those speeds. So slowing down and being respectful of other trail users. And likewise, mountain bikers, you want to avoid collisions because if you're going too fast down a trail, if you don't have good line of sight, you're endangering other trail users.
Yeah. So getting out there, helping build trails, trail etiquette, and of course we got some great organizations in Arizona, the Mountain Bike Association of Arizona, Flagstaff Biking Organization, we got the Sonoran Desert Mountain Bicyclists down in southern Arizona, West Valley Trail Alliance, and the various other groups. So plenty of opportunities for you guys to get involved in your local trail organizations there in Arizona. Of course, I'm excited because I'm doing trail maintenance with the Southwest Colorado Cycling Coalition on Tuesday, building trails up in Boggy Draw over in Dolores, which is our local trail organization.
Yeah, if you join your local trails group, even if you don't do much for them, you are standing up and being counted. Because, you know, when they go to a political meeting, whether it's a city council or county commissioners, they can say, we represent this many trail users. We have this many members in our group. And that's a powerful statement for politics and display.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great information. Great information. So before we go, we didn't quite do the tour. I want to do a brief tour, but I want to remind everybody to get out there as we're talking about giving back, and you know, we have some great raffle prizes. This is, you know, I do 50 to 60 events a year. A lot of them have raffles, but none of them have a raffle like Flag and Grand Canyon. And then we have those $20 and $50 raffle tickets. The more you get, the more you're donating, and the more chances you have to win some of our incredible prizes. You can see those over at flagstaffgrandcanyon.com. Click on charity, and you can see the raffle prizes. And we're going to keep track of those donations, and then you know, we'll get in touch with you to make sure that your raffle tickets get in the right buckets for all the different items we have from great companies like Specialized, among others. You can also join our Go the Distance Challenge, and check out the link that Brian's going to enter into the chat here in a little bit, and find out about that. Our 60-mile distance and our 277-mile distance, which is the width of the breadth of the Grand Canyon, the length from east to west. So a lot of good stuff. But before we wrap up, I want to you know, Ned, if you be so gracious as to show us some of the cool items, you know, a few cool items here. I'll go back to being camera.
All right. It's so the early days of racing. First early I did this from 1984, and it's called Puerco. It's the California Hill Climb and Downhill Championship. and I'm going to say Puerco is in Malibu Canyon. So people don't realize, but California had a long history, and maybe some of the earliest race history in the U.S. Victor Vicente, who's a real character. The two of us were inducted into the Road Bike Hall of Fame. He was an early road racer that went on to, he was actually a mountain bike developer and frame builder. He promoted that race, and it was some of these races that people have never heard about were huge events in the early 80s. Another one would be the Shasta Dam, the Lemurian Classic. And so this started below the Shasta Dam. It was a big point-to-point race. It's not too far from where the Whiskey Town downhill. It was not actually a downhill, but it was a big point event in the early days.
Sure.
So there's those events. Another event, which is a little more modern, and I'll show you the poster here, is for the Fat Bike Berkey. Okay. So Specialized was kind of, they jumped into the fat bike scene. This was 2014. So I think we started making our first fat bike in 2013. And they asked me to, you know, I lived in Colorado where it snows. We didn't actually have fat bike races back then, but they had them in the Midwest, and a lot of people were doing them. So I went and did the Fat Bike Berkey, which is the biggest fat bike. It's the Fat Bike World Series. It's the unofficial World Championships, and I say that because over 2,000 people line up at once. They start at once, and it's in Hayward, Wisconsin.
That's massive.
And Cable and Hayward, Wisconsin, up there in the area where the Berkey Pioneer Trail is. Famous ski track.
Wow.
So this is so super exciting race. You know, you're bar to bar with maybe 10 or 15 guys when it gets, you know, kind of thinned out, and you're drifting through these snow turns because it constantly goes up and down and constantly turning. So everybody's tires are kind of slipping through the right on snow in high speed. You'll be going 35 miles an hour on the downhills in the snow on those things.
Wow.
And of course, what makes it possible is fat tires. So that's my fat bike. I don't race it as often as I used to. Now in the winter, I try to go down to Fountain Hills or Phoenix instead of Wisconsin. But fat bikes are super fun. So that was kind of it was a new area involved in racing. Super exciting. Had some success at it, and those kind of successes really keep me going. And the fact that I could give some input to the product manager about it.
Tell us about your dirt jumping bike. I see you right back there. Are you throwing any sick tail whips and 360s these days?
That is actually a S-Works BMX bike. So it's a cruiser, which is a 24-inch wheel. And my son BMX. So I don't know if your parents have been BMX races. I'm sure you probably have. They tend to sit around for hours
and yell pedal at their kids.
And their kid will go, like Gabe Fox will do a 1-minute race, you know, and then maybe another 40 minutes till he gets to do another race. So there's a ton of sitting around. So I figured my kid would get into BMX, so I went to a few races and sat around and was killing it. So I got myself a cruiser race, the cruiser bike class. Cool. So there was in the cruiser class, I had like an open cruiser class, you know, where all you had to have was a 24-inch wheel bike, so a bunch of different people would race it. And there's a couple of 16-year-old girls that put me to shame on the local BMX track. That was really hard to swallow. Because they were fast out of the gate, and I could beat them if I could pass them, but they would just run me all over the track. They'd run me off the top of a berm if they could. This is legal if you control the line in BMX. Then you can you can move your competitors around.
Yeah.
I guess so. They don't.
Mm-hmm. It's an intense sport for sure. Wow, pretty cool, man. And tell us a little bit about the poster right over here.
Yeah, this is the poster. Specialized has done some great ads, super creative ads, and that's my son. This was done after the 1990 Worlds when my son was born, and he was born in October, shortly after Worlds. So I have the rainbow jersey, which they give the world champion, and the guys at Specialized Advertising Department made a miniature rainbow jersey of my son, and they also took a pair of these Oakley Blade sunglasses. I was sponsored by Oakley, and they cut a set of Oakley Blade sunglasses down so that they would fit him. And,
oh my gosh.
So it was pretty entertaining. And then they used the picture of the bike that I won Worlds on, similar to the bike we have over there. And I can remember this photo shoot, he actually has a skin suit on, right? So there wasn't any room for a diaper.
Oh, it was a ticking time bomb.
A few outtakes where things got messy.
Yeah. Oh, man.
He's yawning, so
yeah.
Pretty funny. They caught him right in the middle of yawning. So.
Man, that's cool.
You should see that kid. So yeah, this is actually the bike he's riding these days. His name is Ryder, and he's gained a few tattoos since then as well.
Ah, okay, inking it up a little bit. There you go. Well, cool. Ned, I once again I can't thank you enough. Let me reposition this guy, and because the camera's got so much zoom to it here on the zoom camera. But yeah, we'll stand back here and. Yeah, we're going to let you go. It's been a great Saturday afternoon here hanging out with you, and we really appreciate your time and your efforts here on the 2020 Flagstaff and Grand Canyon virtual event here. And, we didn't get to touch on the drivetrain much on the brand new S-Works Epic, but coming up Saturday, July 18th, we're going to be chatting with the crew from SRAM. We're going to learn more about the Eagle drivetrain. So hopefully you guys can join us for that one, Saturday, July 25th. We're going to be meeting with Anna Sparks and Taylor Levine, both incredible, accomplished athletes. They're going to share some of their thoughts and stories with us as well. And then we're going to wrap things up on August 1st with our happy hour and talent show and raffle event. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do for my talent because
we have time to get some talent by now.
I know. Hopefully I can find some. Yeah, I got to develop some talent here, so I got the clock's ticking. So, guys, thank you all so much for joining us on this really special Flag Grand Canyon Power Up Zoom meeting. I'm Josh Small. He's Ned Overend.